Hello, I'm Karen, and I would like to share some information with you about finding the main idea. Now, you may immediately think that this is a skill used in language arts, and that is correct. You may find it interesting, however, that this investigative strategy is useful in other places as well. Our friend Fernando is almost 40 years old, and he just lost his job after having worked as a forklift driver for 15 years at a factory warehouse. He's now seeking a job in the warehouse at AdultEdMed. It's very possible that Fernando will need to be good at finding the main idea, evidence, or details in his job at the warehouse. And it might be important for you too. When you take the HiSET or the GED Language Arts or Social Studies tests, finding the main idea and supporting evidence will be skills that you will use. You might simply be asked to locate the main idea in a short answer for one of those tests. Or you might use these investigative skills in finding supporting evidence while writing an extended response. Now, after you get your high school equivalency certificate, you'll need to know these investigative strategies in college for job training or in an actual job that you'll get later on. In fact, our friend Fernando will be using these skills learned in this lesson more than he might think. This is detective training in a way, and I'm here to help you get better prepared to find the main ideas and evidence that you will need to get things done. Let's start with the main thing first. What is the main idea? This would be the very most important thought or idea through the text in question. We'll be focusing on nonfiction texts, such as reports, memos, informational texts, and advertisements. Your detective training will be important because sometimes the main idea is stated, but sometimes you must just figure it out. Remember, the main idea is the most important point. I want to share some vocabulary with you as we begin talking about this investigative strategy. And I want to begin that list with the word nonfiction. If you guessed that it is the opposite of fiction, you are correct. But there may be more to consider when defining that word. One of the best definitions is one that I found in the Webster's Dictionary. Writing that is about facts and real events. Today, we'll look at nonfiction when we sleuth out main idea and evidence. Keep in mind that the skills you use to examine the article we will be reading in a few minutes can be used to examine a report at work or even an advertisement in a magazine. You're going to be discovering the main ideas through identifying evidence and coming to a reasonable conclusion. Let's get this detective work started. Now, you're going to need some tools to work with that will help you discover some clues. The tools or clues will come from these words that we're about to define. Here's the list of words that we'll be working with in this lesson, as well as the definitions. First word, factual. Factual statements are truthful statements that cannot be denied. Statements that the average person may know or can be proven. Next, statistics or data. We're talking about numerical facts. These can be presented in raw numbers, percentages, or fractions. Next, examples are anecdotes. These are real-life situations, events, or experiences that illustrate a position. Anecdotal stories helped explain the author's claim. Expert testimony. These are observations or conclusions by someone who is considered highly knowledgeable because he or she is an expert in a particular field of study or an occupation. This could be someone who has first-hand knowledge or experience. Logical reasoning. This would be an explanation which draws conclusions that the reader can understand. Maybe a discussion which helps the reader understand or make sense out of the facts or examples. And lastly, emotional appeal. This uses sympathy, fear, loyalty, and that kind of thing. It manipulates the reader's emotions. These words and ideas are clues that point to the main point, and it can support an argument or claim that may be reached in conclusion. When writing an extended response, these clues can be used to locate and document facts to support your point of view. Now let's take a look at this brief article from procon.org. Selective breeding techniques have been used to alter the genetic makeup of plants for thousands of years. More recently, genetic engineering has allowed for DNA from one species to be inserted into a different species to create genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Examples of GMOs include apples that don't turn brown and disease-resistant papayas. At least 26 countries, including the United States, grow genetically modified crops, while 19 to 28 European Union nations have partially or fully banned GMOs. Food and ingredients from genetically engineered plants have been in our food supply since the 1990s. In the United States, the health and environmental safety standards for GM crops are regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. Since 1985, the USDA has approved over 17,000 different GM crops for field trials, including varieties of corn, soybean, potato, tomato, wheat, rapeseed or canola, and rice, with various genetic modifications such as herbicide tolerance, insect resistance, flavor or nutrition enhancement, drought resistance, and fungal resistance. The National Bioengineered Food Disclosure Standard established mandatory national standards for labeling foods with genetically engineered ingredients in the United States. The standard was implemented on January 1st, 2020, and compliance becomes mandatory on January 1st, 2022. Now, as we think about what we just read in this article, the big question here is, what's the main idea? We defined several tools or clues that we can use to help us locate the main idea. We could look for facts or statistics, anecdotes, testimonies, logical reasoning, and emotional appeal. But not all these clues will be evident in all situations. Let's start with the main idea first. What do you say the main idea of this article is? If you said the main idea is GMOs, you are correct. Although all of the things listed as evidence or clues are not found in this article, there are certainly a lot of factual clues and statistics mentioned. It's important to remember that not all types of evidence will be in every article or document that you read. Now, how will Fernando use this skill of finding the main idea or evidence in his work at the warehouse at AdultEdMed? It is possible that he will need to interpret and maybe relay to others some information that is important for his job. Here's a scenario that he might encounter. Fernando was given the following memo to share with 12 team members on his shift. Let's take a look at that together and try to determine what the main idea of the memo is for the warehouse staff. To all warehouse staff, from warehouse management, through shift foremen and team leaders. Subject, holidays. Happy holidays. As the end of the year approaches, we hope that everyone has a safe and happy time celebrating with their families and friends. As we think about amending our work schedules, we will also need to prepare the warehouse to be run with a smaller staff. It is the intention of management to allow employees to have extra time off for the holidays while continuing to maintain a smooth operation for AdultEdMed. Inventory must be maintained. Minimum stock must be checked and filled before December 1st. Controlled substances must have proper documentation checked off, signed, and dated by the warehouse operations officer. Locks for the controlled substance locker must be checked and keys verified. Proper documentation must be checked off, signed, and dated by the warehouse maintenance officer. Anticipated incoming orders of supplies must be posted on the incoming watch board with appropriate dates and initials from the ordering agent and department. Receiving of the new inventory will be scheduled by the receiving office, and distribution will be arranged through those who are available to work deliveries. All warehouse employees who intend to take time off must have leave approved by November 20th. Scheduling of holiday staff will be published on December 1st. What would you say is the main idea of this memo? A, wishing the staff a happy holiday. B, scheduling employees for holiday season. C, preparing the warehouse to run efficiently with a smaller staff. Or D, maintaining good relations between the management and the warehouse staff. Although all of these answers may be addressed or inferred in this memo, answer C is correct. The management needs to make sure that the warehouse is run efficiently during the time of year when there may be fewer staff available. Sometimes the main idea is clearly stated, and sometimes you need to use your detective work to hunt the information down. It's often helpful to seek out the supporting evidence to discover the main idea. Now I think you've got what you need to discover the main idea and supporting evidence, so keep practicing. I think you're going to make one good detective.